Welcome to Eye on Northwest Wines. I'm Natalie Marmion. We have a fantastic selection of Pacific Northwest wineries ahead of us, so let's get right to it. Our first stop takes us to the foothills of the Chehalem Mountains, where Adim Vineyard has been producing authentically Oregon wine for over 50 years.
It's a philosophy of trying to grow a product in a very understanding view of everything around us and produce something that is full of energy and complexity. So when you taste it, you're really drawn in and you're like, what is this? I'm really excited about it and I want to eat more and come back to it. So it's about engagement in this purity of a simple grape that we make into wine. Adim is over 50 years old now. We're one of the founding wineries here in the Willamette Valley and the first winery here in the Chehalem Mountain AVA within the Willamette Valley. We produce Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and some other varietals, Pinot Blanc and Syrah. And the way we produce it, especially in the last, I'd say 5 years that I'm excited about, is we're moving our picking up earlier. We have much more staff out in the vineyard to do quality control every morning over the picking bins. And we're spending a lot more time really understanding each block of our land and the soil types that we have and what it needs most so we can produce the most optimal wine. It's really about the experimentation that we do all through the growing season to determine what little adjustments we can make to really fine-tune and elevate the wine. And that accumulates over the 50 years of experience that really produces, wines that are bright, vibrant, full of energy, and exciting to try and draw you back in to try another sip.
I think the picking decision, your decision on when you're going to pick the grapes, is really critical. That dictates a lot of the quality of the wine. It dictates the potential alcohol, how much alcohol there'll be in the final wine. It'll describe how much acid we'll have, and to some degree the spectrum of flavors, whether it's more cherry and raspberry or dark plum and a roasted quality. And everyone has their own particular view on what the best way to approach that is. For us at Adim, we really want a very vibrant, elegant style in our wines, so we tend to pick on the earlier side with higher acid to match the foods that you're eating, as well as lower potential alcohol. Harvest is a really busy time. We're running all over the place. We're visiting vineyards. We're sampling grapes to figure out when to pick. It's really labor intensive, but that's sort of one of our little treats, I think. At the end of the day, we get to go through and see all the work that's happened that day and also the rest of the growing season to figure out, what these wines are going to taste like, where are they going to end up, and it's really one of my favorite things.
Harvest time like now is sort of an orchestra. It's like everything is moved just in time. People come in, everybody knows their roles. We're very fortunate. We have many of our vineyard crew that have been with us 20, 30 years, so they know exactly what needs to be done. It's enormous teamwork. So it's really magical to see it start in the vineyard and the fruit gets tractored into our winery and the process happens here with the cellar team and it gets down into barrel. And then when it gets bottled, it comes up here into the tasting room and it gets opened and shared with individuals. So any time of the year you come out, it could be harvest time or it could be bottling time. It's a great experience to kind of capture the entire cycle of the year. As part of our tasting experience here in the tasting room, we have a range of levels we can meet people at. We have some bilingual tastings we can do. We have simple questions we can answer, or we can go very deep. So it depends on what you're looking for. That's what we want to provide and make it comfortable and enjoyable for all.
Find out how to try their wines for yourself and about the many ways Adim promotes sustainability in wines at adilsheim.com. Our next segment takes us south to McMinnville, where Montanore Estate has created the Grove Tasting Room to share its uniquely made wines and create a gathering space for the community.
The Grove opened 2 years ago in November. What we were really trying to do here was create a unique space to showcase Montanore and Landlines wines, a very accessible space where we're tapped into the fabric of the Willamette Valley community. We're in the heart of the Willamette Valley on 3rd Street in McMinnville, where we're surrounded by beautiful rolling hills, obviously beautiful scenery, great producers all around us, along with great restaurant partners and shops. People are experiencing warm hospitality, great wines, an array of different wine selections than you'd normally find in the Willamette Valley. As well as a story that we have to tell behind the rich history of creating those wines and sharing that with our guests. I think here we're very intentional about what we do. A lot of the intention of the Grove being downtown in an urban setting versus in a rural setting out in the hills was so we could reach more people, not only by folks coming in and seeking us out, by folks just walking by in the community and coming in to experience what we have to offer. And we really wanted to tap into the fabric of the community here. When I say accessibility, we want folks to be able to, once they're done in wine country, have somewhere else they can go and still have that experience after 5 p.m. We do a wonderful job of showcasing the quality of fruit that can be made with minimal intervention, as well as site variation, as well as varietal variation. And we have a priority focus on biodynamics. It's something that we're very passionate about, something we believe in. It's part of our whole culture here. At the Grove and with Montanore and Landlines Estates. We've been practicing biodynamics since 2003. We work with the Demeter Alliance for our certifications every year. So we want to make sure that we're absolutely putting the best product out there possible from a standpoint of land management, production facility management, and then what's in the bottle that you experience.
Biodynamics is a method of farming that engages with the natural fertility of the life of the farm and then allows us to insert the crop that we want and get the most out of it. Winemaking starts in the vineyard. You can't make good wine out of bad grapes. So we focus very heavily on how we grow the grapes. If you have poor soils, or if you have soils where there's not a lot of life, or if you have soils where you're supplementing what the plant needs through chemical fertilizers, it's a very limited nutrient pool. One example, there are fungi that can turn particles of soil that are unavailable to plants into compounds that are available to plants to absorb. What we want in the grapes is complexity of nutrients, complexity of compounds, because when we ferment that creates complexity of the wine. I think people have identified, if you will, our style, which is really just an expression of where our grapes are grown. We grow all our own grapes, so we have a real continuity in the style and character of the wines we make. And I think people have come to recognize that, and they enjoy it, and that's why we have repeat customers that buy our wines vintage after vintage.
A lot of producers here, including us here at Montanore Landlines Estate, from our biodynamic farming practices to the way we train our staff, our culture, how we interact with our community is very intentional. We're trying to capture the essence of true Oregon. We're trying to capture the essence of the Willamette Valley, and that encompasses wonderful experiences, wonderful wine, land stewardship for generations to come. The Grove, really is a home to Montanore Landlines Estate wines, but it's also a place where we want folks to come in and feel a part of. We want folks to feel like this is an extension of their house, their living room, with warm hospitality, with education, but approachable education, and also options in ways we're tying in what we do beyond just wine with events, with other beverage programs, our wine-based cocktail program. We're really trying to create an all-encompassing experience for more folks.
You can learn more about all the events at the Grove, the wines they serve, and biodynamic farming at montanore.com. Pick any direction in Oregon and you're sure to find a spectacular vineyard. But if you head south towards Eugene, a very special group of winemakers are waiting for you to visit. We made the trip ourselves so we could present to you a special flight of wineries that call the Eugene, Cascades, and Coast region their home.
When King Estate was founded over 30 years ago, it was driven by a commitment to sustainability and profound respect for the land. We're focused on innovation, and at the same time, we take care to use time-honored winemaking techniques. King Estate is the largest biodynamic vineyard in North America. That means that we treat our vineyard as an entire ecosystem, where the soil, the plants, the animals, and even we as growers are all in balance and working together. Our sustainable agricultural practices produce wine that is the best possible expression of our unique site. We're known, of course, for making wonderful Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris, but we are fortunate to have the capacity to make a wide range of other wines like Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Rosé, and a sparkling wine made exclusively from estate-grown fruit. If you'd like more information about our wines, or if you want to visit our beautiful tasting room here just outside of Eugene, please go to kingestate.com. Happy holidays from us to you.
Here at Walnut Ridge, we have 30 acres under vine, with the first plantings dating back to 1996. With 7 varietals, there's truly something for everyone. We are one of the few vineyards growing Gamay in the Willamette Valley and love being able to offer guests something unique with this bright, lively, and fun wine. We're proud to be family-owned and operated with a small but mighty team. Everybody helps with a bit of everything, especially during the harvest season. Some of the same hands serving you wine in the tasting room also help in the vineyard during the harvest. We think it's a really important part of what makes us us. Our tasting room was built in 2016 to welcome folks to the estate. It's modeled after Lafitte's blacksmith shop in New Orleans, which is one of the oldest bars in the country. We think it's the perfect place to experience Walnut Ridge's famous hospitality. So as you're traveling to the wineries across Lane County, we hope you'll stop by and say hi. But you can also visit us online at walnutridgevineyard.com.
I grew up farming grapes with my dad. About 30 years ago, he bought property between Eugene and Corvallis that is now called Brigadoon. He cleared stumps and debris, and over the next 15 years began the slow process of planting 15 acres of grapes. In 2008, he, my mother, and I decided to start Brigadoon Wine Company and began producing our wines. And in 2011, we built our tasting room and winery at the vineyard. We farm organically, and my father and I operate as vignerons. That is, we are both actually in the vineyard and doing the farming and in the winery making the wines. To name a favorite wine would be tough because we put so much of ourselves fully into our wines. That being said, we make a dry Riesling that year after year is pretty fun to see how it evolves. We hope we get the chance to talk to you about our grape growing and winemaking at our tasting room in the Willamette Valley. But if you want some more info, you can go to brigadoonwineco.com.
Sweet Cheeks Vineyards was planted by my grandfather, Dan Smith, with the assistance of his friends and family. The estate was first planted with Pinot Noir in the late 70s, and soon he added Pinot Gris, Riesling, and Chardonnay. Dan originally planned on just selling the grapes to local wineries, but upon completing the vineyard in the early 2000s, he decided to build a winery for the community to enjoy. Dan met our winemaker, Leo Gabica, at a neighboring winery, formed a friendship, and hired him as the very first employee at Sweet Cheeks. While we sadly lost Dan a few years ago, we still feel like he lights the way for our wines we make here at Sweet Cheeks. We are releasing our newest sparkling wine, a sparkling rosé from Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, handpicked from our vineyard. It will be named Reverie, a state of daydreaming, to reference Dan's creativity and imagination. He would always be dreaming up his next adventure or invention. The wineries in Lane County are just so incredible. Everyone is true to themselves and the wines they produce. It's honestly one of the best places to discover wine and deepen your appreciation for the craft of winemaking. It feels undiscovered, especially in cellar season. We invite you to take a trip and visit our tasting room, or you can visit us online at sweetcheekswinery.com.
You can visit EugeneCascadesCoast.org for your guide to some of the Willamette Valley's best wineries. In our next stop, we visit with Craig and Vicki Luthholt, owners of Maryhill Winery, who for over 20 years have been excited to welcome wine lovers to their tasting rooms all across the region.
Maryhill was really a seed that was planted in 1984 when we made a trip through Napa Valley, and we fell in love with the whole idea of turning an agricultural product into a sensory beverage. So in 1997, we actually invested in a small winery just down the road here in the Columbia River Gorge. We knew we were roughly 90 minutes from the Portland metro area, and we wanted to create a destination winery where people could drive to and from the winery in a day. And I think you couldn't do what we do without having a passion for the industry and for making wine and growing the grapes and entertaining people with really good wine. One of the things that we really thought about when we started Maryhill was that we wanted it to be a destination winery where people could come and spend the day and do wine tasting and hang out on our terrace and look at the beautiful views of the Columbia River Gorge. Initially, we didn't have a kitchen here. It was just a self-serve deli, so people would bring picnics and they would come and spend the entire day hanging out on the terrace. And for us, that was what it was all about, was building a relationship with our customers.
But it became obvious that if we wanted to expand our reach, we needed to open up some satellite tasting rooms. So we opened our first one in 2017 in Spokane. 2019, we opened up Vancouver, Washington's tasting room on the waterfront. And then that fall, we opened up in Woodinville in the historic Hollywood Schoolhouse. All of our locations feature restaurants showcasing a line of signature dishes as well as unique creations inspired by the individual chefs and teams that work at each location. And they're open 7 days a week.
Maryhill is one of the most award-winning wineries in the Pacific Northwest. We've won more than 5,000 awards in the last several years, including Winery of the Year 3 different times. One of the things that's so unique about us is we work with 20 different growers all throughout Eastern Washington and Oregon. It really allows us to offer so many different wines for people that they can come in, and whether they want a dry red or a sweet white, we have something and everything in between.
We see novice wine tasters and connoisseurs that have been tasting wine for a very long time. When they come to our tasting bar, we usually have 7 to 9 different wines that they can try out of our portfolio of 60 plus wines. And we educate them on each wine as they go through, and they learn about the different varietals or blends that we're pouring, and they leave with a little bit more information to make an educated decision on what they like to drink going forward.
Our winemaker, Richard Batchelor, is a native New Zealander, and he really has a special talent in winemaking. We feel so fortunate that he joined us back in 2009. He's so meticulous about going out and working with our growers and making sure that they're growing the grapes properly. When the grapes are delivered to us, 80% of what comes out of the bottle has already been delivered from the field. And the winemaker's just a steward that makes sure that those grapes are properly taken care of so that they exhibit their highest and best when it goes into your glass.
Along with his team and his expertise, we have all kinds of technologies in the winery, from glycol chilling to glycol heating on every single tank. We have barrel aging, a separate barrel room where we will have predominantly French oak. Part of it's in new and neutral. It stays in there a couple of years, then goes into bottle, and we have our own bottling line on site that he also oversees. So our wine club, we have a couple different tiers of wine club. It's a very robust and generous offerings. They come in and have complimentary tastings. We have wine club exclusive wines for them. We have wine club events specifically for our wine club.
Every month, we offer a different flight at each of our tasting rooms so that in any given month, you can taste 7 to 9 different wines. And then each month that flight changes, so over the course of the year, you could actually taste through our whole portfolio of more than 60 different wines.
Please come see us at any of our Maryhill Winery tasting rooms. We'd love to host you and teach you all about Maryhill wines and what Washington wine has to offer.
If you and a friend want to visit a Maryhill tasting room near you, you can visit MaryhillWinery.com and download a QR code to receive a 2-for-1 tasting experience. No wine tasting tour is complete without visiting Oregon's Mount Hood territory, where wineries are making some of the finest in the region. We stopped by King's Raven Winery in Oregon City to visit with the owner and winemaker, Darren Ingram.
Our family are 5th generation farmers, and My father, my grandfather, and now my family with my wife, Tanae, and I are now farming this land. About 25 years ago, we decided to plant wine grapes because something was happening in Oregon. We grow several varieties of grapes. It's an all-estate winery. So we farm about 15 acres of grapes and started planting in 1999 with Pinot Noir. We grow 3 different heirloom French American hybrids, Liamy-Low, Marechal Foch, and Chalois. And on the white side, we grow one called Phoenix. But what we found that the intent of the winemaker and the people that consume our wines ends up in each and every bottle if we allow it to. And how we do that is we still make every bottle of red wine by stomping the grapes with our feet. We have a big wine club party, and people jump into the bins, and we all stomp the grapes together, and everybody's intent impacts the wine, believe it or not. We start with treading the grapes. We stomp them, whole cluster 100% wild yeast fermentations that end up producing unique flavor profiles that have depth of character. When we approach our farming practices with the intent of harmonizing with nature, it translates and cascades into the wine itself. And the cycles of the sun and the moon and the weather, how the temperature changes up and down, heating and cooling, all that naturally ages the wine. That profile speaks to people because it's more approachable. And historically, in cultures all over the world, wine promotes community. Everybody gets together at the end of harvest. All the other crops have been brought in, and now it's time to harvest the grapes and the fruits, the apples, and a preservation technique to make them last is, converting them into wine. The old world, which we would consider, the Eastern Hemisphere and Europe and that kind of thing, wine is part of daily life consumption. But here in America, there's been a transition happening from it being a specialty drink to more part of daily life. And that daily life part of it still inspires me because, like a good piece of music that transports you back in time, where you feel like, just hearing that song, I now remember, what it was like to be at this place, at this wedding or this birthday. Wine has that same capacity to transport you like a time machine. You look at the bottle and you see the year and you open it up and it's like a time capsule. And you remember that harvest and how it brought you and your friends together to make that vintage. I invite everybody to come out and connect with nature, not only through the wine, but through the view, the surroundings. Take your shoes off, put your feet in the grass. We're only 30 minutes from Portland. You have an opportunity to connect with nature here.
Learn more about King's Raven Winery at kingsravenwine.com and explore all the amazing wineries in Oregon's Mount Hood Territory at mounthoodterritory.com/wineries. That's all for Iowa Northwest Wines. We hope this inspires you to get out and explore some of the world-class wineries the Pacific Northwest has to offer. I'm Natalie Marmion, and until next time, cheers.